to be able to talk to you and to your father, and wondered what your thoughts are about your connection to this history that's so central to the making of the U.S. and to the creation of Stanford.
Well, I had always known about the history. I mean, I know my dad's history. I mean, it was funny because when growing up, I always knew he came from China, but he didn't really tell us the story about his great-grandfather until later. So all about the going back to China, going born here, going back to China, and then it didn't always occur to me that there was a connection there, that I actually had a relative that was born in this country. And then, I had seen different documentaries. I'd seen the Bill Moyers documentary, and so it became more familiar to me. And then when I heard about the program, I guess it was announced, was it last year or so, that the railroad workers program was going to be here. I mean, if I didn't do work with you, I probably would not have brought it up that I had an ancestor that was a railroad worker. So it was just a chance meeting that I would be talking to you about this.
And now that you make this connection, what are your thoughts about it?
It adds a little more dimension to my family. It's something I didn't expect really, and it's nice knowing that we have this kind of history and all the little stories that go in there that my dad has mentioned that really make our family history more interesting, and we can see how that we worked very hard, and we had a family that really stuck together and developed, and as we see today, I have a lot of cousins too, so we have a pretty big family.
And what about the link to the creation of the university?
It is rather ironic that I'm working here. I mean, my working here was just happenstance. I mean, I had no idea that I'd be working at Stanford. If you were to tell me when I left college that I would end up working at Stanford, it's not something it ever occurred to me. It's just through my life that I somehow, in the work I was doing, that suddenly I ended up in Stanford, because it's not related to what I was doing at all. When I left college, I was working in architecture.
Just realized we forgot to ask you to identify yourself.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Say your name.
Oh, hi, I'm Anthony Hom. Okay. So anyways, so just by a series of things going on, I ended up finding myself working at Stanford, and I've been here since 1996. So, and it's very different work from what I had imagined I'd be doing, but the fact that I've been here for, let's see, I guess we're looking at 18 years now, that I do like the work here at Stanford that I've been doing. And I do enjoy being at Stanford. I just love the environment. It's quite different from the work I was doing when I was working in the private sector. So, and then I did know all about Stanford and the history of how this university was created, and all about the development of the railroad. So that was all familiar to me. I just couldn't connect the two, my family and that whole history together. Now finally it's all coming together.
Last thing is, when you were growing up, were you aware of the exclusion law and the laws against the Chinese?
I was not. I mean, when I was growing up, I mean, it's just because at the time I didn't really think about the history of that time, because since I knew my dad came from China, I thought it didn't apply to me, so I didn't really think that my family was a part of that. And I didn't really know it until later on, when I learned a little more during high school and college, and then watching more documentaries about finding out the history of the Exclusion Act. And then plus also I have some relatives that know a lot about the history of Chinese in San Francisco, and have talked about those laws. I have an aunt that actually gave tours in San Francisco, Chinatown, and she would talk about the history in Chinatown, and about how things like at one time Chinese were not allowed to buy property, and they had to stay in Chinatown area, and they could not leave that area. So it was just slowly building up. I figured I learned more and more each time as time went on.
And where did you go to high school and college?
I went to high school. I grew up in Foster City, and I went to high school at San Mateo High, and then I went to college. I spent a year at University of Southern California, and then I spent the rest of my undergraduate time at UC Davis.
Thank you
Anthony.
so much, Anthony, and thank you for connecting us with your
Yeah.
Sure,
insights,
you're welcome.
which is
Thank
you.
Such a joy.
You summarized it so beautifully. You get such a spirit, you know? Such a feeling of.
Someday your little girls will watch these interviews. and
Yeah.